Yahuwah is the awesome one, and there is none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win, you're our champion. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing halal, halal Yahuwah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing halal, halal Yahuwah, for the King who is victorious. Yahuwah is the awesome one, and there's none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win, you're our champion. Yahuwah is the awesome one, and there's none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win, you're our champion. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing halal, halal Yahuwah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing halal, halal Yahuwah, for the King who is victorious. Yahuwah is the awesome one, and there is none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win, you're our champion. Yahuwah is the awesome one, and there is none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win, you're our champion. Yahuwah is the awesome one, and there is none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win, you're our champion. Oh, our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallow, hallow Yahuwah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallow, hallow Yahuwah, for the King who is victorious. Yahuwah is the awesome one, and there is none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win, you're our champion. Oh, we appreciate you, Abiyah, for allowing us to return safe, sound, without incident, accident, and without hurt, harm, or danger, that we may come to the conclusion of the matter. We want to turn our attention to the scroll of Malachim, Aleph, chapter 3. And while you're turning there, we're going to begin at verse 15, but I want to read, I'm going to read starting at verse 1. I'm going to read all the way to verse 14, and then we're going to pick up from there. And I want to show what's taking place here. And it is so.
And it is so.
All right. And Suleiman made an alliance by marriage with Pharaoh, king of Mitzrayim, and took Pharaoh's daughter and brought her into the city of Dawood until he had made an end of building his own house, and the house of Yahuwah and the wall of Jerusalem, round about. Only the people sacrificed in high places because there was no house yet built to the name of Yahuwah in those Yamim. And Suleiman, Ahab Yahuwah, walking in the statutes of Dawood, his Abba, only he sacrificed and burnt incense in high places. So everybody wasn't doing it. Only he did that.
Mm-hmm.
And the king went to Gibeon to sacrifice there, for that was the great high place. 1,000 burnt offerings did Suleiman offer upon the altar. In Gibeon, Yahuwah appeared to Suleiman in a dream by night. And power said, "Ask what I shall give you." And Suleiman said, "You have shown to your servant Dawood, my Abba, great mercy, as he walked before you in truth and in uprightness of heart with you. And you have kept for him this great kindness, that you have given him a son to sit on his throne as it is this young. And now, Yahuwah, my mighty one, you have made your servant king instead of Dawood, my Abba. And I am but a little child. I know not how to go out or come in." Once he understood and he humbled himself, and he was open, and he knew what he needed. Humbleness is the way. Don't ever let anybody fool you. Pride goes before a fall. And he said, "I'm a little child." Now, mind you, we know he was a grown man, but he understood, look, my understanding of this walk, I am a little child. Okay? And your servant is in the midst of your people whom you have chosen, a great people that cannot be numbered nor counted for multitude. Give therefore your servant an understanding heart to judge your people, that I may discern between great and bad. Excuse me. For who is able to judge this your great people? And the speech pleased the master, that Suleiman had asked this thing. Now listen, he got the Abba's response. And power said to him, because you have asked this thing, and not have asked for yourself long life, neither have asked riches for yourself, nor have asked the life of your enemies, but have asked for yourself understanding to deserve right ruling. Behold, I have done according to your words. Lo, I have given you a wise and an understanding heart, so that there was none like you before you, neither after you shall any arise like you. And I have also given you that which you have not asked, both riches and esteem, so that there shall not be any among the kings like to you all your young men. Excuse me. And if you will walk in my ways to guard my statutes and my commandments, as your Abba Dawood did walk, then I will extend, so what he says, your life. Now, it's important that we understand what's taking place here. It's important we understand, once again, our theme for those that may be just tuning in to be with us is Torah, and it's Miketz. And our beginning and our basis or beginning came from Bereshit chapter 41 all the way to chapter 44, verse 17. We looked at the life of the children of Yasharal and Joseph. We closed out with Joseph being Pharaoh and him talking to Yehuda. Now, it's important we understand this is, we're looking at principles here. We're looking at wisdom. And the theme, Miketz, means at the end of. At the end of. Here it is. It would seem like he's just beginning. So why would this be a theme that will go along with us just coming into the life of Suleiman becoming king, building and doing the things that he's doing? Well, you have to understand there are phases in our lives that we come to certain points in. He has come to the end of building the physical places for them to sacrifice and for him to live. Now it is time for him to go to the next phase or go to the next step. Now that next step not just involves him and his mishpachot, but now it involves the nation of Yasharal, and watch this, and those that are surrounding nations or those around them. Very important for us to understand. And because he understood where he was in position, he understood, you put me in this position, and now I am without any kind of understanding, and I need your help. When it comes to this, I am a child. I have no understanding, and except you breathe on me and give me understanding, I'm like a ship without a sail. I'm like a car without a steering wheel. I cannot navigate through this life without you. That's one of the key things we as the children or the nation of Yasharal must be willing to admit. Hey, I don't have all the answers. As far as I go, I have no answers unless you give them to me. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
I have no answers. I have no way of bringing anything to the table unless you give it to me to bring to the table. Once again, humble is the way. And pride go before a fall. If we are so arrogant and we're so proud that we are too proud to ask Abba Yahuwah or go to him and say, you know what, I'm really still just a child in this and I really do need your help. Unless you bring clarity to me, I can't do this thing. He acknowledged that the nation of Yasharal were the chosen people and that that we are a great people. And he said, look, I need your help because I can't do this unless you give me what I need. And this pleased the Abba. Now, let me show you something. Remember what Dawood told him. He told him, he said, now when you become king, there are some things that I need you to do. I need you to exact some punishment, or I need you to reward those that tried to reward me in my time as being king. Those that tried to come and do things, those that took the lives of others. I need you to turn around and I need you to do the same thing that they were going to do to me. I need you to do to them. Now, he didn't incorporate this in his prayer. He did not ask Abba Yahuwah to give him strength to bring about revenge on those that had done his father wrong while he was the king. Neither did he ask the Abba to subdue his brothers. Neither did he ask for the heads of his enemies. Neither did he ask for finances to have way more than enough. Because remember, Dawood was not broke. Yeah. So he didn't come into being king without anything he had. But he understood you could have all the money in the world, and you could have a team of committed, dedicated people. But unless you have the wisdom of Abba Yahuwah, as quick as you get it, you will lose it. Mm-hmm. So it's important that we understand that his prayer was not selfish, but he understood, I can't do this, Abba Yahuwah, unless you Baruch me. Now he asked for wisdom, and because Abba Yahuwah said you asked to be able to discern between right ruling. This is another thing that is so important for us to understand. If we don't rightfully rule, then we're going to constantly find ourselves hitting brick walls. We're going to constantly find ourselves in a position where we won't really be able to advance, and we really won't be able to see healing come to us as individuals and then as a nation. Very important for us to understand that. So verse 15 brings us up to speed to help us understand what takes place after this. I am a firm believer when you ask Abba Yahuwah for something, he will give it to you. Now understand what I'm going to say. According to Yehukanan Aleph, chapter 5, verse 14, when he says that if our ways, if we please Abba Yahuwah and we do that what is right, then we can go before him boldly and ask him. And we can ask him according to his desires, and he hears us. So we know we are not going to ask anything that's amiss or outside of truth. Yehukanan 5, verse 14. And this is the boldness that we have in him, that if we ask whatever according to his desire, he hears us. So you have to understand, we must line our hearts up with the desires of Abba Yahuwah so we can get the results that we are praying for. This is very important for us to understand. There are times that we don't need to focus on anybody, understand what I'm about to say, but ourselves. What do I mean by that? In other words, I am saying it's important that we understand that we are committed, that we are strong, and that we are pushing to do all that he's called us to do. And then we can help somebody else. I said it earlier. Broken people cannot heal other people if they are broken. We can't bring solutions to the table if we ourselves have no solutions. So this is important for us to understand, and this is important for us to operate in. Here it is once again, Suleiman, verse 15, and let's read. We're going to read starting at verse 15, and we have 28 verses. Let's read let's read 6 verses apiece. And it is so.
And Solomon awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And he came to Jerusalem, and stood before the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah, and offered up burnt offerings, and offered shalom offerings, and made a feast to all his servants. Then there came 2 harlots to the king, and stood before him. And the one woman said, O my master, I and this woman dwell in one house, and I gave birth to a baby with her in the house. And it came to pass the 3rd day, after that I gave birth, this woman gave birth also, and we were together. There was no foreigner with us in the house, save us 2 in the house. And this woman's baby died in the night because she rolled on top of him. And she arose at midnight and took my son from beside me, while your handmaid slept, and laid it in her bosom, and laid her dead child in my bosom. And when I rose in the morning to give my baby milk, behold, it was dead. But when I had considered it in the morning, behold, it was not my son, which I did bear. And it is so.
And it is so. Now let's look at this once again. Verse 15. Behold, it was a dream when he awoke. He knew that the dream was true, for he heard the birds chirping and the dogs barking and understood what they meant. So here it is. He's coming out, and the first thing as he comes out of this dream or vision is he takes, now look at this, how he does this. He goes and he offers unto Abba Yahuwah, and then he makes a feast to all his servants. He basically rewards his servants with a feast. Then he turns around, and there came to him 2 harlots, and they stood before him. Now remember, he's got to be a king that is willing to judge. Now you have to understand the when you're talking about harlots in our time, we would consider them as being hoes, prostitutes. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Of that nature, which people many times would look down on and say, well, that's the lifestyle they live with. You know, they just got to, you have to understand, they were moved to go to the king to ask for his help. Mm-hmm. So they understood and recognized, watch this, and accepted him as their king. So his responsibility was in turn to accept them as his people. Yeah. He didn't throw them away. He didn't push them out because of their lifestyle, but he listened to what was being said. And it says in verse 17, and the one woman said, oh, my master, I and this woman dwell in one house, and I gave birth to a baby with her in the house. Now, both of them are pregnant. 9 times out of 10, they are sharing this home because they cannot afford to do anything else. It does not go into detail why they were prostitutes. It doesn't go into detail even why they were living together, but we can assume they were living together because it was better for them economically to share a home. And we know most of the time, according to history, if a woman ended up having to have this type of lifestyle, one or two things: she was widowed, are you hearing me?
Yes.
Or she was divorced. And no other man could take her up, and she had no children, so she had to fend for herself. Why? Because nobody else was going to be there to help her in this. So they go before the king, and they begin to explain their situation. Now, mind you, he's the king. He is esteemed by Abba Yahuwah. He doesn't send them away. He doesn't tell those under him, well, you know, go to my council. They'll deal with you. Go to them, you know, because really this is way above, you know, this is beneath me. So I don't really need to hear you.
Right.
I don't need to, you know, because your situation, you know, you out there doing what you do. So I really don't need to take the time to hear you. That's not what he did. And she continues to explain in verse 18, and it came to pass the third day after that I gave birth, excuse me, that this woman gave birth also. And we were together. There was no foreigner with us in the house, save us two in the house. 3 days later, she gives birth. So the baby, her baby is what? 3 days older. There's something different about a baby's when you see a spanking brand new baby and a baby that's days old. It's something about the color of their skin. It's something about their skin. It's just something about a baby that's a day older than a newborn baby. They're still newborns, but there's something different about them because regardless of it, that baby still was 3 days older, even though it was 3 days. And so in verse 19, and this woman's baby died in the night because she rolled on top of it. Well, there's another thing it says, because she overlay it. That must have been the true reason, because had it died from illness, the other woman in the house would have known about it, and she could not try to pass her child off on, as the other woman's child. Now, you know, nowadays they tell women, do not sleep with the babies in the bed because it can become dangerous and so forth and so on. But I've come to understand, having 9 children, when you give birth and you have a baby in the bed with you, there is something, that's that maternal instinct that says there's another little life in here with me.
Right.
You know, and I'm not going to roll over. It's just like when you're pregnant with a baby, you know, unless you just sleep hard and you are just way out of it, where you wake up and you land on your stomach. There's just some positions you just don't sleep in because that consciousness, there's a consciousness about you knowing, hey, I'm pregnant. I can't lay on my stomach.
Right.
You know, I can't do this. And so I'm persuaded that as they both gave birth, you have the one that truly was or had that maternal instinct to say, there's a life in here with me. And I have to be careful. And I have to, you know, I have to sleep softly. I can't sleep hard like there's nobody in the bed with me. I have to make sure that if my baby wakes up, I can hear him. I have to make sure that if I move over, that I'm able to know that my baby is right there. Whereas the other woman, it could have been an accident. I'm not saying that she deliberately did it, but I am saying there are times that we can see in society that some people pay more attention to certain things than other people do. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Excuse me. Now, and so she says in verse 19, and this woman's baby died in the night because she rolled on top of him. And she arose, verse 20, at midnight and took my son from beside me while your handmaiden slept, and laid it in her bosom, and laid her dead child in my bosom. Now, someone would say, but how would she have the exact time? You have to understand, babies are on a schedule. So I'm sure that she was able to nurse her baby before midnight. And her baby was alive before midnight. And this is how she could calculate the time and say it had to be midnight. Why? Because her baby had already ate and was full. Are y'all following?
Yes.
So after midnight or during this time when her and her baby were asleep, this is how she was able to do the switcheroo. And she said, and when I rose in the morning to give my baby milk, behold, it was dead. But when I had considered it in the morning, behold, it was not my son, which I did bear. Now, let me show you the wisdom in this. She knew at that point, like, this was not her baby.
Right.
But she did not react. She waited until she could take this matter to a higher authority, which was King Sahulama. And so she waited because she said, look, I understand when I went to feed the baby was not mine. But in the morning, I saw it was not my son whom I did bear. Once again, you got to remember, her baby was 3 days older, while the other baby was 3 days younger. Now, it's important that we understand what's going on here. All right, let's take up at verse 22. Excuse me. Verse 22, and let's read let's read 5 verses, yeah.
Verse 22 and Melachim. And the other woman said, nay, but the living is my son, and the dead is your son. And this said, no, but the dead is your son, and the living is my son. Thus they spoke before the king. Then said the king, the one says, this is my son that lives, and thy son is dead. And the other says, no, but your son is dead, is the dead, and my son is the living. And the king said, bring me a sword. And they brought a sword before the king. And the king said, divide the living child in two, and give half to the one and half to the other. Then spake the woman whose the living child was unto the king, for her bowels yearned upon her son. And she said, O my master, give her the living child, and no wise slay it. But the other said, let it be neither mine nor yours, but divided. Then the king answered and said, give her the living child, and in no wise slay it. She is the mother thereof. And it is
Go ahead and read verse 28, 22.
okay. And all Yasharal heard of the judgment which the king had judged, and they feared the king, for they saw that wisdom of Yahuwah was in him to do judgment.
And it is so. Now let's look at this once again. Very important for us to look at why this is important for us to see. Not only, excuse me, was compassion shown here, but we also see the wisdom that is here. Now they're backwards and forward. Now you have to understand, urging their pleas repeatedly because the king had to give them that opportunity and that space. So, if you're standing, nowadays you go to court, ain't gonna be doing like this, backwards and forward. No, that's my child. No,
Right.
No, it's my child. No, it's not. It's my child. No, they're not gonna give you the opportunity to do that anyway. They're gonna wait and they're gonna have somebody else speak for you.
Mm-hmm.
This is why they either appoint a lawyer for you or you have to get a lawyer, which to me personally, you should be able to represent yourself. You should be able to speak and say and speak on your own recognizance.
Yeah.
Because you can, yes, you absolutely can. And the thing here is that these women were able to do so. Why? Because he had to be able to assess their hearts. He had to be able to look into their hearts, look into their minds, and look and see who was really telling the truth versus who was lying.
Right.
Whenever you're dealing with your children or anybody and you say, now, y'all stand before me, and I want you to tell the truth. And the one that starts crying and getting emotional, that's the one sometimes that's the one that's guilty. Because they start crying and say, because if you don't tell me the truth, I'm going to whip you. No, I'm going to whip both of you, don't tell me the truth. And the one that's guilty starts crying because they're saying, well, I don't want to whip it, but I don't want you to get a whipping either. Mm-hmm. And then you have some that be like, okay, well, we both just going to get a whipping. Okay, well, then I know you did it because you want both of y'all to get a whipping. So I know you're the guilty one. So you're going to get the beating. But here it is. He had to listen. And though it may have seemed redundant to others, as the king, he had to listen to them backwards and forward in order to get to the root of it. And so it tells us the one said, "This is my son." It is reduced that a judge must repeat the pleas of the litigants that they may be sure that he had understood them. So he wanted to be sure, and it had to be done repeatedly so that he could hear the matter. You can't judge a thing if you only listen to somebody tell it to you one time. Now you're ready to dismiss the case.
Right.
You know, some people like just hear what they got to say and move them on. No, sometimes you have to sit there and listen for a decent amount of time to be able to judge a situation accordingly.
Right.
You got to listen. Okay, they said this, and we've been sitting here listening. You know, they're backwards and forth, backwards and forth, backwards and forth. And he had to realize, okay, now it's at this point. Now this is the climatic part of it. Now I do this, I'm going to truly pull out the one that's truly the real Ema. And so, verse 23, excuse me. Then said the king, the one says, "This is my son that lives, and your son is dead." The other said, "No, but your son is dead, and my son is the one alive." Now, this is what the king did. He repeated what they said back to them. And the king said, "Bring me a sword." Now, he's got their undivided attention after he's basically rehearsed in their ears what they have just said. And he says, "Bring me a sword." And they brought a sword before the king. Now, mind you, the king is probably just as calm, cool, and collect, because he realizes, you know, one of you, I know one of you is going to speak up, and I'm sure he knew which one truly was the Ema. But to be fair, he had to go through with it.
Mm-hmm.
Are you hearing me?
Yes.
You know, in order to judge a thing, you have to hear the full matter of the situation that needs to be judged. And I'm learning, and I have learned over years, never be partial. Never let, well, this person got to me first, so you know their words are better because they got to me first. No, if you can't get them both before you, then you should not hear the matter of one without hearing both at the same time.
Right. Right.
Because now your judgment can really be partial, and your judgment can be swayed.
Right.
Because both of them actually need to be there. I don't care what the matter is. Somebody could have said something wrong. Well, they looked at me funny. Well, we need to bring them into the office because we need to deal with them. Why? Because I need to see why. Because you could have looked, or you could have misjudged this.
Right.
And if we're going to be truly rulers that are going to be right rulers, you got to hear both matters, and you have to hear from both of them at the same time. So I said, well, sometimes that's not great, a great thing, because they may, you know, no, that's why you have a council. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
You're going to stand here, but ain't going to be no physical. Ain't gonna be no blows thrown.
Right.
Because we have to be willing to show that we are not going to be partial in our judging. And whatever is said, both need to be there so that if something is said at that time, that person can be there to defend themselves. And not say, well, I can't remember all that was said. You know how, excuse me, some people say, well, they said this. Well, I really can't remember what all I said. Okay, but you just told me that.
Right.
But now you can't remember. So now, once again, you're only working off of partial information, when it is very important that both parties be in the presence of one another to say what they have to say. And it be done in a manner that now, hey, we're not going to let this go beyond this. And so Suleiman used wisdom. He said, okay. And the king said in verse 25, divide the living child in two and give half to the one and half to the other. Then spoke the woman whose son he was to the king, for she had compassion upon her son. And she said, oh, my master, give her the living child and do not kill him. So he waited. He wasn't going to do it. Why? Because he wanted to make sure, once again, he had to hear and he had to see the conclusion to this matter. If he would have, watch this, given her baby to the wrong mother, what do you think would have happened?
She probably could have killed it.
She would have killed it. She didn't regard her own baby. So why would she regard another woman's baby?
Right.
So he had to wait. And he had to listen and let everything be said, because you have to understand, I'm sure while he listened to them go backwards and forth, he knew that the real Ema was going to speak out, but he also knew the one that wasn't was going to speak out as well. And so this is where he could make his final judgment, or make his judgment, because he had to hear all of it to the end. Verse 27, then the king answered and said, give her the living child, and in no wise slay it. She is the Emma. He had to listen to it. Because you have to understand, they were both bickering backwards and forth. And the one that stole the baby, we could assume she did it for so many reasons.
Right.
But in the end, she turned around and said, divide the baby. Don't let either one of us have it. Really? So you just took it just to be spiteful.
Right.
You just took my baby just to be spiteful. Not because you wanted a child, but because you were going to be spiteful. And Suleiman said, no, give the mother, the real mother,
Right.
the baby. And listen at verse 28. And all Yasharal heard of the right ruling. It was only right to give the real mother the child, which the king had judged. And they feared the king, for they saw that the wisdom of power was in him to do right ruling. You have to see it. It's not enough for people to, for you to say, I'm a righteous person. I do right things. No, it has to be seen, and people have to be able to experience this.
That's right.
And they saw this and they experienced it. Now, mind you, he just had come out of the dream or the vision. He was given to his people, his servants. He was doing this, and out of the blue comes this situation in his lap. You have to understand something. When we make a vow to Abba Yahuwah that we're going to do right and that this is what we want to do, we're going to be challenged with the very things we say that we're going to do or we're not going to do.
Right.
He said, I'll do. He said, just give me the wisdom to do this and I'll do it. And Abba Yahuwah set the stage for him to see if he was going to truly esteem what he said. And he did, and he did not fail. And we have to be the same way.
Right.
If we ask Abba Yahuwah, Abba Yahuwah, if you baruch me, I'll do this. If you give me this, I'll do that. Abba Yahuwah, if you bring me out of this, I'll do this, that, and the other. And when we do, we need to be sure that we own up to what we've said we're going to do.
Yeah.
Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Especially when he's already put us in a position to do so.
Yes.
The next thing we have to do is just execute what we've asked him to give us. And he did it, and he did not fail. And it is possible. So we need to look at that. Once again, we see it even in Joseph. Wisdom. Are you following me?
Yes.
Wisdom, right ruling, doing what is right. And I said it before. This is not something you just fast and pray for. This is a gift that Abba Yahuwah bestows upon certain ones. Everybody doesn't have this gift. Everybody's not put in a position to do so. And so it's important that we understand that. Very important. Are you following me?
Yes.
All right, chapter 4, verse 1. Just verse 1.
So King Suleiman ruled over all Yasharal.
And it is so. Now, important is that why would it leave off at this? King over all of Yasharal. On seeing his wisdom, all rejoiced that he was king. At the beginning of his reign, Dawood was not king over all Yasharal. So you have to understand, after this happened, Yahuwah turned around and gave him all of Yasharal, not just a providence, not just a portion. I said it in the beginning. To whom much is given, much is required.
Right.
And Abba Yahuwah, if we are committed over little, he will make you ruler over much. Now, with that being said, you have to understand that has to be the position he's put you in.
Mm-hmm.
That has to be what he's given you. Everybody is not going to be a ruler because everybody has not been anointed to be so.
Right.
Are y'all following me?
Yes.
And this is what we have to understand. Do you not know he has anointed followers? So we got to know who we are and where we fit in the picture. And it is so.
It is so.
All right, let us turn our attention now, excuse me, to Romaiah chapter 10. And we're going to look at verses 1 through 13. Very important. Compassion is key because that's one thing that Yahweh truly looks at is our compassion for those that are without. Many times we can find ourselves not being compassionate to people that do not have. And you have to understand the poor and those that were without are important to Abba Yahuwah too.
That's right.
And this is important for us to understand because many times we don't see that. We tend to believe, he doesn't care, but he does. And this is one of the reasons why too, Yasharal got in trouble and stayed in trouble because they forgot the poor. They're poor. It's not the government's responsibility to take care of our people. It is our responsibility.
That's right.
Why do you think he Baruchs us? He Baruchs us for that reason, to be a Baruch. And so when we miss that, that's the problem. And we can't afford to miss it. We need to make sure we're doing what is necessary. Now, somebody would say, but, you can't really trust everybody because everybody ain't on the up and up. I agree 100%. But for those that truly are trying, they're going to put themselves in the way to do right. They're going to put themselves in the way to do right. And for the ones that's trying to run scams and do everything else, Yahuwah is going to deal with them.
That's right.
But this is where, once again, when you ask for help, you've got to be willing to put yourself in a position for people to see you really need that help. Because nobody wants to be taken, and I'm in full agreement with that. Nobody wants to be taken advantage of. But it's important that we understand there are certain things that we must do in order to get certain help.
That's right.
And it is so.
It is so.
All right. Chapter 10, verses 1 through 13 of Romaiah, which is Romans. Let us read, please. Let's read 5 verses. Mm-hmm.
And it is so.
Okay, come on.
Five verses. Romaiah chapter 10, verses 1 through 5. Brothers, my heart's desire and prayer to Yahuwah for the Yasharites is that they may be saved. For I can testify about them, they are zealous for Yahuwah, but their zeal is not based on knowledge. Since they did not know the righteousness that comes from Yahuwah and sought to establish their own, they did not submit to Yahuwah's righteousness. Mashiach is the end of the law so that there may be righteousness for everyone who believes. Moshe describes it in this way: the righteousness that is by the law. The man who does these things will live by them. And it is so.
And it is so. And that you read all the way to verse 5, right?
Yes.
All right, now let's look at this. We got some footnotes we're going to look at. Excuse me. He says, brothers, my heart's desire and prayer to power for Yasharal is that they might be saved. Might be saved. He goes on to say, for I bear them record that they have a zeal of power, but not according to discernment. Discernment, being able to see and understand. They didn't have that. Listen what he says in verse 3. For they being ignorant of power's righteousness and going about to do what? Verse 3. Establishing their own righteousness, having not submitted themselves to the righteousness of power. Let's look at that. Establishing their own righteousness and have not submitted themselves to the righteousness of power. We see this all the time. We experience it all the time on a large scale. You have to understand, it is not about you. It is not about me establishing our own righteousness. It is about following that what he's placed before us to follow. Understand, there are many things that were placed within our way as stumbling blocks. There are many things that were put in our way to keep us from truly being able to worship and esteem the Abba in the manner that he has called us to. There are two righteousnesses that are being compared. One is Yahuwah's Torah and the other is man's way. Therefore, if you do not submit to Yahuwah's Torah, then there is a serious problem, as many Christians do not either. Are you following me? This is where it is important that we understand. There is the instructions of Abba Yahuwah, and then there is the instructions of man, which we have come to understand because of interpretation, which his instructions, his doctrine was interpreted as law. Whether it says law, doctrine, or our instructions, the bottom line is that this is what he's given unto us to follow in. And what man came and did, man came and distorted, man came and thwarted, man came in and put in and then also took out, so that we would always be vacillating, trying to follow a system that was created by man, instead of following the system that was created by Abba Yahuwah. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Now, it says, not submitting themselves to the righteousness of power, meaning Yahuwah. Excuse me. The Ibram people were so busy in Torah keeping that they could see the outer garment of Torah, but not the inner garment, which is Yahush. Now, although we are supposed to keep Torah as even our Mashiach instructed us in Matthew 23:2, get that for me. But we are to see the inner garment, which is Yahush, so we know its fulfillment. Now, it's important that we understand, once again, what is being said here, that we follow in the instructions that has been given to us. Are y'all following me? 23 and verse 2. All right, read that for me.
Matthew chapter 23, verse 2, saying, the scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moshe's seat. Verse 3, all therefore, whatsoever they bid you observe, that observe and do, but do not you after their works, for they say and do not. Read on.
No, that's fine. Thank you. Now, I want to read this to you. And many of us have probably read this before. The Zohar, a mystical text believed to be by some teachers to be written by the early Nazarenes, states as follows. Saninko Zohar, Bemidbar, section 3, page 152a said, alas, for the man who regards the Torah as a book of mere tales and everyday matters. If that were so, we could compose a Torah dealing with everyday affairs and of even greater excellence. Nay, even the prince of the world possesses books of greater work, which we could use as a model for composing some such Torah. The Torah, however, contains in all its words supernatural truths and sublime mysteries. Observe the perfect balancing of the upper and the lower worlds. Yasharal here is balanced by the Malach on high, of whom it says, who maketh thy angels into winds, Tehillim 4. For the angels in descending on earth put on themselves earthly garments, as otherwise they could not stay in the world, nor could the world endure them. Now, if thus it is with the Malach, how much more so must it be with the Torah that created them, that created all the worlds in the means by which these are sustained. Thus had the Torah not clothed herself in garments of this world, the world could not endure it. The stories of the Torah are thus only her outer garments, and whoever looks upon that garment as being the Torah itself, woe to that man, such as one will have no portion in the next world. Now listen at this. The senseless people only see the garment, the mere narrations. Those who are somewhat wiser penetrate as far as the body. But the really wise penetrate as far, the servants of the Most High King, those who stood on Mount Sinai, penetrate right through to the soul, the root principle of all, namely to the real Torah. In the future, the same are destined to penetrate even the super soul, or soul of the Torah. Observe that in a similar way in the supernatural world, there is garment, body, soul, and super soul. The Shemayim and their hosts are the outer garment. The community of Yasharal is the body which receives the soul, to wit, the beauty of Yasharal. And the super soul is the ancient one. All these are interlocked within each other. Woe to the sinners who consider the Torah as mere worldly tales, who only see its outer garment. Happy are the righteous who fix their gaze on the Torah. Proper wine cannot be kept saved in a jar. So the Torah needs an outer garment. These are the stories and narratives, but it behooves us to penetrate beneath them. So this is, once again, they're giving an example of what was stated, excuse me, concerning Torah. Why is it important for us to understand? Because the Zohar were those that were considered to be from the ancestors of Haran, I believe it was. And they were some of the ones that, after everything had happened, they were some of the ones that were supposed to preserve the way. And they were some of the ones that many scholars believe held on to basic principles. And when I say basic, I'm not meaning basic in the sense that is of low estate. I'm talking about beginning principles in this walk. And so here it is. Once again, this is being read because this is how they viewed the Torah. Are you following me? Yes. Now, we as the children of Yasharal should be able to see and be able to know within ourselves that there is more to the Torah than just what people try to say it is. It is not just fairy tales. It is not just rules and regulations. It is our lifestyle. No. And it does not become a reality and become real to you until you accept Yahushua the Mashiach. Yes. This is very important for us to understand. Once again, given the analogy as the outer garment and the inner garment, you have to understand it is Yahush that helps us to understand and bring clarity to the instructions of the Abba. Without him in our lives, it looks like something different. You know, when we were in many different religions, when we were in Christianity and when we were in other ways of life, we looked at it as being, oh, that's old, it's outdated. Remember, because that's the Old Testament. It is not the Old Testament. It is the covenant of Abba Yahuwah with his people and the renewed covenant, which many have called to be the New Testament. It is not a New Testament. It is the renewed covenant by which we stand. And in order to get the fullness of it, you have to have Yahush in your life. I know it's not popular and people don't like it, but it is the truth. Yes. He is the mediator. He is the one that gives us the understanding to be able to interpret and hold on and explain why we believe the way we believe. It is so. Very important. Once again, we got to go beyond. We have to penetrate it. You have to push in it. Now listen at verse 4. For the Mashiach is the goal of the Torah, for uprightness to everyone that believes. This is not saying that now that we have obtained Yahush in our lives, that now we disregard the Torah, because he is the Torah made flesh. Are y'all following me? Yes. Excuse me. The goal. Let's look at that goal. The word in the Greek states telos nama krestas, which many Christian translators have incorrectly translated end, but its more accurate meaning is go, or to teach, or to reach a place. So when people see it and they said that Yahush, or even in the King James Version, that Jesus is the end of the Torah, it is wrong. He is not the end. First of all, his name ain't Jesus. Let me interject that. His name is not Jesus Christ. His name is Yahush, and he is the Mashiach. He is the son of Yahuwah, and he is not the end of Torah, but he is the goal of Torah. And this is important for us to understand. Now, listen, once again, it was translated incorrectly. Mm-hmm. It is go, or to reach a place. Telos, that is, excuse me, teleological to something. Paulus was trying to show this way the Greek is constructed. It is not to show an end, but to show a fulfilling or the reaching of a particular place. Yes. The Torah is eternal, and there is no end for it. Yeah. It is eternal, and there is no end for it. Are y'all following me? Yes. Once again, Christianity. Those that were interpreters misinterpreted. Mm-hmm. The Torah is eternal, and there is no end for it. When we reach Mashiach, we do not stop doing Torah, but we actually learn how to keep the commandments from afresh. Because if we belong to Yasharal, then we learn how to do them, not how to do away with them. This is very important for us to understand. And this is why the enemy has pounced and continues to fight our people so hard about giving up on the Mashiach. Because if you don't have the Mashiach, then you will never reach that goal or that place to be able to follow in his commandments or follow his commands towards our lives.
That's right.
This is why he fights to pull him away from us, to make us not believe, to make us just literally give up and throw in the towel. Excuse me. But we will not. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Now, let's look at this once again. Let's look at what we're looking at. Let's look at this verse again. To everyone that believes. Now, let's look at this and let's bring clarity to this. Now, the everyone, listen at this, was not Yasharal, or listen at this. They were the 10 lost tribes. So it was not to everyone, but to the prostituting sheep of Yasharal. Matthew 15 and 24 says, but I've come not but for the prostituting sheep of Yasharal. So it is important that we understand the everyone who is being spoken of. This is basically showing all who would also have their hope fulfilled. And the only way that this could happen is through the person of the Mashiach of Yasharal, who would allow them entry and reconcile to Yasharal, and to avoid contention and fighting of who is better, which sounds like today.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Are you following me?
Yes.
Will we be of Yehuda? And so we are better. We are Simeon, and we be better. We are of Reuben, so we be better. We are of Dan, so we be better. No, you have to understand, this is why it is important that we embrace the truth and we not disregard it and push it away.
That's right.
Yes.
And it is so.
And it is so.
Now let's look once again at verse 5. For Moshe described the righteousness which is of the Torah, that the man which does those things shall have life in them. Once again, shall have life in them. It is important that we understand what is being said, what is being conveyed. Torah gives life. That is everlasting life by trusting Yahuwah, and reveals our Mashiach. But listen at this. But unfortunate that erroneous theology teaches that Torah cannot bring righteousness is plain false. It's false. I used to believe that the instructions of little bitty cars. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
The cars are created to carry any size person. Excuse me. So it's important that we understand this. Once again, the reason why it is important that we understand this is that we don't allow anyone to beguile us.
That's right.
And, hey, a little bit of property. Inheritance is also in getting that way and inheriting our way of life. Yes, it was stolen from us, but we are taking it back, and we are living, and we are walking in that. We are accepting who we are.
That's right.
We are the children of Yahshua. We are that chosen people. And when we understand that, we must understand life.
Right.
And this is why he said, look, many have a zeal, but not unto knowledge.
That's right.
Because they're trying to do things on their own. We cannot do this on our own. If we remember the request of Suleiman, he said, look, I can't do this on my own.
That's right.
I need your intervention. I need your help. And this is where we have to cry out to the Abba. Abba, I need your help. I can't do this. I need you to help me understand my way of life. Excuse me, and not look at it as a way of religion. Verse 6, moreover, the righteousness which is of trusting belief speaks on this way. Say, not in your heart, who shall ascend into the Shemayim? Verse 7, excuse me. That is to bring Mashiach down from above. Very important for us to understand. And this is quoted from Debitum 30 and 14. Let's go to 30 and 14 of Debitum, which is Deuteronomy. But you haven't said it is so. Oh, I'm sorry. Deuteronomy chapter 30 and verse 14. I'm trying to teach. All right, 30. And this is what the step I showed said. All right, let's read.
Leviticus chapter 30, verse 14. No, the word is very near you. It is in your mouth and in your heart, so you may obey it.
Read 15.
See, I set before you today life and prosperity, death and destruction.
Finish reading.
For I command you today to have your Savior, to walk in his ways and to keep his commands, decrees, and judgments. Then you will live and increase, and Yahuwah your Savior will baruch you in the land you are entering to possess.
And it is so.
And it is
Now, listen what he's saying. He said, don't go up there and get him. He said, look, it's in your mouth. For the word, the Torah, very near you, in your mouth and in your heart. See, I have set before you to Yam, life and great, and death and evil. In that I am commanding you to Yam, to Ahab Yahuwah your power, to walk in his ways and to guard his commands and his laws and his right rulings. And you shall live and increase, and Yahuwah your power shall baruch you in the land which you go to possess. Excuse me. Why is it important that we understand this verse? It is important that we understand this verse because he's telling them why you are trying to find basically to substantiate what is being saying. It is already there. Are you following me?
Yes.
The one thing that many of us that are coming into truth and many of those that are listening and we're trying to have a that which is not true because we want to satisfy the desire to serve and to do what our ancestors did not do. But because along the way, our ancestors never did teach us the right way. So we end up inheriting error because they didn't teach us right. Are y'all following me? They only taught what they were given. And that is why we ended up being where we are to this young. So it's important that we understand that. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Now, once again, excuse me, he's in their mouth, near them. Why? Because all they have to do is what? Believe. Believe. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Believe. Verse 7. Verse 7 says, "Oh, who shall descend into the deep?" That is to bring up Mashiach again from the dead. Once again, he's telling them, don't get this notion in your head. The living Mashiach is compared to the written Torah. So it's important that we understand. He's telling them, don't get yourself in these matters, but remember who he is and walk therein.
Yes.
All right, let's read verse 8. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. The last 6 verses. Excuse me. Debitum. I'm sorry. No, we're in Romaiah. Romaiah chapter 10. Excuse me, verse 8. You have it. Come on, read.
But the righteousness which is of belief speak on this wise. Say not in thine heart, who shall ascend into Shemam, that is to bring Yahush down.
Verse 8. Verse 8.
But what saith it? The word is nigh thee, even in thy mouth and in thy heart. That is the word of belief which we proclaim.
Now hold on right there. He's in also in verse 8, he is quoting chapter 30 of Devarim, verse 14. He comes and he is reiterating it again. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
He's bringing it back again to them to let them know and understand it's in your mouth. How does it get in our mouth? It gets in our mouth by way of belief. But what does it say? He's telling them, what does the word say? Now you have to understand, he's talking to a people that are not ignorant. They know this because they read it. He is now reiterating it and bringing it back to their face. Many times we was talking to a young Ak on last Layla, and he was saying, there's things in the writings I never had seen. He said, until somebody pointed it out to me. There are things that were hidden from us. Why? Because we maintain a certain way. And I'm going to say this. Christianity teaches you how to preach based upon points.
Right.
Christianity teaches you an understanding of what truth is. So we were taught how to preach 5-minute sermons. We were taught how to preach 20-minute sermons, razzle dazzle the people, and create a message out of a message that's already in there to bring us out of the damnation and out of the way we were living in. But Christianity teaches you how to do these things, teaches you how to read and not see what's really there, teaches you how to read with blinded eyes and deaf ears, teaches you how to hear what they want you to hear, and then teaches you what not to hear.
Right.
This is important for us to understand, because he's telling them this. Why? Because he understands. You know this because you've read it before. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
This also allows us to understand that in that time they were living according to Torah. So for everybody that says, well, the renewed covenant, which everybody wants to wrongly say the New Testament is irrelevant, that is a lie. It is not irrelevant. What do you think they lived based upon? They lived based on the Torah. And now we have an example of them living according to the renewed covenant. In our time, we have the example that they left before us. Excuse me. And it is so.
And it is so.
Now, let's look at this once again. The word. Even Rabbi Paulus uses the rabbinic idiomatic expression for the Torah, which is the word. It's important for us to understand that. And yes, it's a rabbinic idiomatic expression. Many times we look at rabbinic and we start thinking, okay, why would he use that expression? He used that expression just like we use slang.
Right.
We use it all the time. Are you following me?
Yes.
And we know and many people also use what? Ebonics.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't follow after that. But watch this. People use it to do what? Convey their thoughts at time and to convey a message. But does that mean that they're grounded in that? Absolutely not. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
All right. I'm making sense?
Yes.
All right. Now, once again, which we proclaim, he's quoting from the Biram chapter 30, verses 11 through 14, showing us that Rabbi Paulus was teaching the Torah and Testament Christianity. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Now, with that being said, it's not saying that the renewed covenant is not right. It is showing us that the New Testament, which the Church of Nicene or the meeting of Nicene put together and did all the stuff they did some wicked stuff during that meeting. They did some wicked stuff during that time. And it's important that we read and get an understanding so that we don't continue to follow in the path of error. And so he's telling them, he's showing them this is not, he was teaching the Torah and not what many people look at is New Testament Christianity. Excuse me, what the church teaches, that the Torah was abolished and that everything that the Torah upheld was abolished and that Yahushua came to do away with everything. That's a lie.
Right.
That's a lie. Now you have to understand the Jesus they put in place did. It did. The church that set up a figurehead, because you have to understand, they knew what they were doing when they did what they did. You have to understand when Marcion, when they created the Bible, the King James Bible, which I know many people are diehards for, even if you get this and have the 1611, it's still erroneous because it still goes against our way of life.
That's right.
It still does not teach you to follow the Sabbath. There are certain words in there that were put in there to constantly keep us off guard as trying to live right and do right, keep you at a place of ignorance. And this is true. And so when you read these things, we tend to feel like Rabbi Shaul and the other emissaries was teaching, but they were teaching and they were being hypocrites because it doesn't line up. They say one thing in a verse and then the next verses say something differently. That is because this is the way they structured it. They structured it for Christians, not the true people,
That's right.
not the chosen people. So it's important for us to understand that. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
All right. Now, excuse me. All right, come on, read for me, verse 10. I'm sorry. Did you finish verse 9?
Yes.
All right. Excuse me.
For with the heart man believes unto righteousness, and with the mouth confession is made unto salvation. For the scripture says, whosoever believe on him shall not be ashamed. For there is no difference between the Jew and the Greek. For the same power over all is rich unto all that come upon him. For whosoever shall call upon the name of Yahuwah shall be saved. And it is so.
And it is so. All right, now, the whole context of this passage is righteousness by obedience to the Torah. So Rabbi Paulus is not saying what people have misunderstood here. It's not just a confession of the Mashiach, but he is saying that if you confess that Torah is what brings and gives righteousness, then you confess with your mouth Yahush. Since in both previous 3 passages, he is equating Mashiach with Torah. So here it is Torah, which we affirm is to bring Mashiach into our hearts. And if we reject Torah, we reject the Mashiach. Be careful how you conclude Rabbi Paulus' verses. They are central to Torah teaching. Listen at this. Christians have taken this passage out of context and misapplied it as one statement, but it teaches to confess means to be acting and doing Torah commandments. Are you following me?
Yes.
There's a lot of people with that, boy. Why? Because people continue and want to hold on to Christianity. And if you notice, once again, look at what he says, what he's saying in this. If you believe in the Mashiach, if you believe in the Torah, you have to believe in the Mashiach.
Right.
It's imperative and it's important. But because of erroneous teaching, excuse me, once again, you have those that are doing what? Establishing their what? Own uprightness.
That's right.
And when people do this, this is where problems come about. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Now listen at it says in verse 10, for with the heart one has trusting belief to righteousness, and with the mouth confession is made to what? Salvation. That we're believing in the truth. What is our truth? Torah is our truth.
That's right.
Yes. For the scripture said, verse 11, who has trusting belief on him shall not be ashamed. We won't be made ashamed. Are you following me?
Yes.
The only way we'll be made ashamed is because we don't believe. Let's look at the text from Yashayah 28 and 16. Belief on Yahuwah. Excuse me. When you have it said it is so.
And it is so.
All right. Come on, read that for me, 28:16.
Yashayahu chapter 28, verse 16. So this is what the sovereign Savior says. See, I lay a stone in Zion, a tested stone, a precious cornerstone for a sure foundation. The one who trusts will never be dismayed. And it is so.
And it is so. Once again, we can go back to the writings, and we can always find a verse to support and to substantiate what is being said. Because Scripture does what?
Interpret Scripture.
It interprets Scripture. See, I am laying in Zion a stone for a foundation, a tried stone, a precious cornerstone, a settled foundation. He who trusts shall not hasten away. We trust, so we ain't going to be quick to move away. We're not going to be quick to be shaken. We're not going to be quick to be moved from our position of belief. Why? Because we believe who? Abba Yahuwah.
Right.
You have to understand what Christianity did. Christianity did a switch. They basically restructured, reorganized the whole system of our salvation and our belief. What did they do? They removed the name of Abba Yahuwah. about 7,000 times, anywhere from 7 to 8,000 times. Not only did they remove his name, but they also took the emphasis off of serving him and placed it upon Jesus.
Right. Right.
Are you following me?
Yes.
And nowhere will you ever read in the original writings that Yahushua ever said, worship me. He always directed us to worship the Abba.
Right.
He even told us, he said, don't pray to me. He said, but ask in my name, the Abba. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
So he took and put everything in its proper perspective.
Right.
And this is important for us to understand. Why is it important for us to understand? Because when you understand the truth, then you can understand the deception. And this is why, once again, you cannot remain in Christianity and try to walk in truth. Because you will forever be saying God and Jesus, you'll forever be saying Christ, and you'll forever be doing those things. And that is the wrong order. And that is true. Those are the wrong titles and wrong names.
Right.
Yes.
Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Yes.
Very important. Because when people say, well, God did, who are you talking to? Who are you talking to when you say God did it? Who did it? That's just like going in a room and everybody in there has a white shirt on and a blue tie. Well, the man with the white shirt on and the blue tie did it. Really? Which one?
Right.
So you mean to tell me none of those men with white shirts and blue ties have names? Oh my. Something is wrong with that picture.
Yes.
No, they have names. It is just easier, and it's just, to me personally, lazy to just continue to say God instead of building a relationship with him and getting to know his name.
Sorry.
And then knowing his son's name, Yahushua, and that it is through Yahushua that we get eternal life because we've been directed back to the Abba, and our relationship is to the Abba.
Sorry.
Because when we pray Abba Yahuwah in the mighty name of your son, Yahushua Mashiach. We come to who? We go to Abba Yahuwah.
Right.
Because that's who we are making our request known to.
Right.
But Christianity tells you, no, you're supposed to pray in Jesus' name and you're supposed to ask Jesus. That's not scriptural. Not according to the original.
Right. Right. God.
Made up, yes, but not according to the original. And so it is important that we ground ourselves in truth and understand. Somebody said, but how are they getting all these things to happen? You really want to know how they're getting a lot of this stuff that's happening? You got fallen Malak, you got the enemy himself. So when it's all said and done, take your pick.
Right. Right.
That's just like saying, okay, well, you know, when you go and a janitor, he has all these keys. Yeah, he has all those keys, but there's only one skeleton key that truly is able to unlock all the doors.
Right.
But people choose to use a whole lot of other mediums and use a whole lot of other things. And then they want to say, but he's moving for me. Once again, what God are you talking about?
Right. Exactly.
Who are you talking about? Just like when you go over and they say, well, them Africans. And people look at you and say, who are you talking to? What Africans? We have names. Are you hearing me? We have tribes that we are a part of. It's amazing that we're willing to go to the lengths to describe or to distinguish and say who they are. But when it comes down to telling people who we serve, we only try to give them a general name.
Right. Right.
Or a title. Let me correct that, a title, because God is not a name, it is a title. It's a title. That's why even people try to use the title. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Excuse me. Very important for us to understand. Very important. All right, now let us look. Verse 12. For there is no difference between the Yahudim and the Greek. For the same master over all is rich to all that call upon him. Now you have to understand what is being said here. Once again, many times people take this to believe that he's talking about everybody and that everybody is included in this. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Now, it's important to understand. Let me read this. To call upon one is to have trusting belief and to believe and act upon Yahuwah's Torah, and not like in Christianity wrongly taught that these are just words. They are words with actions to show Yahuwah that you are serious and mean to obey. And you have to understand, those that were being spoken to were those that were of the dispersed. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Those that were scattered. This is very important. Just as I said, when when Joseph was in Mitzrayim, Joseph not only took on the attire, but he also took on that lifestyle. But watch this. The difference between Joseph and us is that Joseph continued to acknowledge power and said, Abba Yahuwah is my authority and my power, and I can do nothing except he moves upon me to do so.
Right.
Well, what happened to us through our ancestors and forefathers is that the reason they were dispersed is because they wanted to worship our idols. They wanted to continue to live the life they lived. So what ended up happening, Abba Yahuwah said, okay, that's what you want. I'm going to give you exactly what you want. So we ended up inheriting a lifestyle that truly was opposite and contrary to the way of life that he wants for us and wanted for us. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
So now that we are walking in truth, it is important that we understand everything that entails our truth, our culture, our way of life, because this is not a religion. It is a way of life. Are you following me?
Yes.
It is a way of life, not a religion. And because many have taken it and heaped it up in the category of religion. Now people say, okay, that's the, Hebrew Israelites, that's that religion. It is not a religion. It's our way of life.
Yeah.
But we were stripped of our way of life. So when we came here to the Americas, and those that were already here, born and raised here and already here, and you came through your ancestors, regardless of you were born here or you're here, you were still living in error. Because we took on the lifestyle, we dressed, we spoke, we talk as they spoke. So this is why when he makes the reference to those that call upon him, he is talking about those of our people that call themselves Greek, that call themselves by other terms, because they had lived here. We call ourselves, those of us that do still call ourselves, we call ourselves Hebrews. Many still call themselves Americans.
Right.
Are you following me?
Yes.
Land of the home of the free, land of the brave. So you still have that. Excuse me. So before we came into truth and understood that, we said, oh, yes, we are Americans. And when we began to call on the name of Abba Yahuwah, he began to show us, you are Hebrews. Are you following me?
Yes.
Living in America. But we are not Americans. Are you following me?
Yes.
Now, I know to many people that sounds, but how can you say that? How can that truly be so? Because we're not. We're not. We are Hebrews, and that's who we are. And we will continue to say this is who we are. And we will continue to live the life that is pleasing before the Abba. And it is so.
And it is so.
Now let's look at this verse 13, our last verse, I believe it is. Excuse me. For whosoever shall call upon the name of Yahuwah shall be saved. Did it say call on the name of Jesus?
Nope.
Did it even say call on the name of Yahushua?
Nope.
It said call on the name of who? Yahuwah. Not God, Yahuwah. And until we embrace our truth and embrace that what really brings us salvation, we're going to constantly be compassing a mountain that is never going to yield to us the benefits that we desire. Very important. He's quoting extensively from the Tanakh. Let's look at Joel chapter 2, verse 32. When you have it, saying it is so. Joel chapter 2, verse 32. And it is so.
It is so.
All right, read that for me.
How many verses? Oh, just verse 32.
Read it loud.
And it shall be that everyone who calls on the name of Abba Yahuwah shall be delivered. Nor for on Mount Zion and in Jerusalem there shall be an escape, as Yahuwah has said, and among the survivors whom Yahuwah calls.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. And it shall be that everyone who calls on the name of Yahuwah shall be delivered or shall be saved. The whosoever here, now watch this, who will be joining Yashral back refers to the 10 tribes. And watch this, and other people that will come along. But first to the children of Yashral.
That's right.
and then to anyone else. Now, the importance of understanding this, and I know to many people, it sounds off because Christianity that was really created once again in the Council of Nicene, they said we got to have something that's built upon what they call love, and we got to have it open for everybody, and we have to bring everybody in. It doesn't matter if they are the Ku Klux Klansmen. It doesn't matter. All we want is for them to come in and worship, this pale-faced, blue-eyed man, and we want them to see that he is the Savior of the world. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
And so now it's amazing that in Christianity you find more racism than the law allowed. It's the truth. Go to some of these European ministries. See how many melanated folk they have up in their pulpit as preachers. But when you go into a melanated church and they have European people in there, they'll have them all up in the podium. They'll have them all on their support team. They'll have them all on their pastoral care. They'll do all that. But you go into some of these European ministries, they ain't gonna have all that because it's full of racism. Then they're gonna have the face of a European man on there with blue eyes and a pointed nose. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Yes.
But yet they say, but this is the Savior. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
It's important for us to understand these things. Once again, you can come. We can't forbid you for coming, but you have to understand just because you come now doesn't give you a legal right to come and try to teach when you are not supposed to come for that. You're only supposed to come because you understand this is the only real way and the only way to salvation. And this is where you have to understand. Many people come and say, oh, I want this way of life. Then when they learn it, now they go out and guess what they do? They go and bring their people and say, now we the people. I've seen it happen numerous times. And this is why when people come, especially of other nations, you have to understand that when they come, if they're not coming truthfully for the real reason, and that is to truly live and to walk in this way, they're going to come, and the only thing they want to come and do is learn so they can leave and take it back and establish their own righteousness.
Right.
And watch this, and then turn around and boot you out of the picture. I've seen it on numerous pages. You see these people walking and they go and now they're having their own, and then all you see is nothing but their people. And yeah, we the people, and Yahuwah be praised because we the people. And then when you put something up, a melanated picture about us being the people, then they have a problem with it. But as long as nothing is said about them putting up a blonde hair and he's standing up there, oh, we all can, we supposed to be able to identify with that. We're supposed to get along. But the moment you put a melanated picture up there of Yahuwah and of a male and a female melanated person with the lions behind them, well, color doesn't matter. It's amazing. It doesn't matter now.
Right. Right.
But at a time, as long as that face was up there that represented you, it was okay.
Right.
So you have to understand something. The games that people play, we can't play those games.
Right. Yeah.
We have to live this life and we have to live it. Somebody say, well, that's being racist. No, it's not. We can't be racist. We can't be racist. How can you be racist to a people that are racist towards you? Are you hearing me? We can't be racist towards them. Where have we enslaved them? Where have we done any of those things? Where have we stripped them of their identity? Where have we went in and rewrote history so that they would never be able to know who they were? Where can they read in their history that they were slaves and that is it? You hear about them in the history books coming over here as pilgrims, establishing a land that was already established. Right. You hear about them coming over and they lie and say when they met the indigenous people here that they fellowshipped and they had Thanksgiving. Get out of here with that mess. It's a lie. They brought smallpox and they killed many of our people. Yes. Pillaged and raped and stole land. But then when we start speaking truth, now we're the ones that's racist and we're the ones out of order. No, it is because we have come to know who we are and we're going to walk in it. Bottom line. And it is important that we understand that. You have to understand you're going to encounter these things. Right. But when it's all said and done, whose side are you going to be on? I'm on the side of the upright, and that's the side of Abba Yahuwah. Yes. And you must understand, it is to the house of Yasharal first. And anybody that desires to come in, we can't forbid them from coming in. But you must understand, my message is to the prostituting sheep of Yasharal.
That's right. Yes.
That's who my message is to. and to strengthen that which remains and is about to die. Very important for us to understand. We must understand this and we must hold on to it. And when we reach that place, excuse me, in our lives, where we understand who we are and what our purpose is, I didn't say things will become easier, but I guarantee you'll be able to meet the challenges head on, and you'll be able to do it in boldness because you know who you're serving and you know who you are. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. Come on, put your hands together in esteem. I want to say to you, keep your head up, keep your shoulders squared, and keep your heart and your feet in and upon the Torah, because you can't go wrong when you continue to follow him and ahab him with all your heart and with all your mind and with all your strength. Know that Yahushua gives us access and he is our mediator. And throughout the writings, and when you read, you see everything Yahushua did was to walk in unity and to show us how to adhere to the commands of his Abba. He never went against anything that his Abba has done, and he never will.
Right.
And it is so.
And it is so.
Once again, keep your head up, keep your shoulders squared, and keep your heart and your feet in and upon the Torah, because you can't go wrong when you continue to embrace the truth that he's given unto us. I want you to remember that I am Aliyah Yasharal, and I am the leader of Messengers of Yahuwah's Kingdom, of Break Belief Ministries located in South Carolina. I want you to remember here at Messengers of Yahuwah's Kingdom, of Break Belief Ministries, this is the place where the Torah does the body excellent. Until next time, may Abba Yahuwah Baruch Atah and keep you in his shalom until we meet again. Also, I want you to remember that you've been touched by Champion TV, a place where the champions reside. And it is so.
And it is so.